All right, today we're diving deep into one of the most incredible and frankly disturbing chapters in modern American history. It's a secret FBI program called COINTELPRO. And believe it or not, the story of how it all came to light starts in the most unlikely place you can imagine. So how on earth does a boxing match expose a secret war? It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, right? But this is real. The year is 1971, and the entire world is glued to their TVs, about to watch the fight of the century. That's Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. But while everyone was distracted by the fight, a totally different kind of battle was about to kick off. And yeah, that timing was absolutely deliberate. A small group of 8 anti-war activists knew that on this specific night, pretty much everyone, including the police and security forces, would be completely distracted. It was the perfect cover for what they were about to do. Find proof of something they only suspected was happening. Now, you gotta understand, these weren't some crew of professional burglars. They were ordinary people. We're talking professors, parents, everyday activists. They just had this deep conviction that the FBI was illegally trying to shut down anyone who spoke out against the Vietnam War. Their whole mission was to find the hard evidence and show it to the world. They got away with suitcases just stuffed with files, every single document in that office. And as they started sifting through them, they found pretty much what they expected. Proof that the FBI was spying on student groups and civil rights activists. But then, on one little routing slip, they found a single, strange word they'd never seen before. A word that was about to blow the lid off a secret war that had been going on for 15 years. That word, COINTELPRO. It stood for Counterintelligence Program. This was it. This was the smoking gun they were looking for. And its discovery was about to change absolutely everything. Okay, so what was COINTELPRO? What had these activists just stumbled upon?
The name itself was kind of a deliberate deception. Officially, counterintelligence is all about protecting your country from foreign spies, but the FBI completely twisted that definition. They turned it inward, targeting American citizens right here on American soil. It was basically a word game that let them treat political opponents like they were enemy combatants.
And this, right here, this is the official mission statement pulled directly from the FBI's own memos. The program ran from 1956 all the way to 1971 under the infamous Director J. Edgar Hoover. And get this, its goal was to, and I'm quoting here, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize dissenters. I mean, listen to those words. It's so clear this was never about enforcing laws. It was about crushing any movement the FBI decided was subversive. So the big question is, how did they actually do it? Well, the FBI developed a really systematic and often pretty brutal playbook to wage this secret war. When you break it all down, analysts have really identified a 5-part strategy. It would start with things like infiltration and trying to provoke people. Then it would escalate to psychological warfare, and then using the legal system to harass people. And from there, it often went all the way to illegal violence, which they coordinated directly with local police departments. Yeah, a huge part of this playbook was something they actually called dirty tricks. Think of it as a full-blown psychological warfare campaign. The FBI would do things like plant fake stories in the media, forge letters to break up activists' marriages or get them fired from their jobs. They'd even send anonymous letters just to create fights between different groups. The entire goal was just to create chaos and paranoia. And this is maybe the most chilling example of all. The FBI illegally bugged Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s hotel rooms to get recordings of him having affairs. Then they sent him an anonymous package. Inside was a tape of those recordings and this letter. It basically told him to commit suicide or they would expose him. I mean, let's be real. This isn't law enforcement. This was a psychological assassination attempt. Now, you might be wondering, who exactly was the FBI targeting? Well, their definition of subversive was incredibly broad. Let's take a look. So the program originally started by going after the Communist Party, but under Hoover, it expanded a lot. Pretty soon, the targets included the anti-Vietnam War movement, student activists, groups fighting for Puerto Rican independence, and even white hate groups like the KKK. But there was one group that received a massively disproportionate amount of the FBI's attention and resources. In 1967, the FBI created a specific program called COINTELPRO Black Hate. And in a 1968 memo, they laid out these 5 specific long-range goals.
You can see this wasn't just reacting to events. It was a strategic campaign designed to completely neutralize Black political power before it could even get organized. And look at that second goal, prevent the rise of a messiah. They were terrified of a charismatic leader like Dr. King, who could unify the movement.
I get this number. Out of 295 documented COINTELPRO actions against all Black groups combined, 233 of them, that's nearly 80%, were aimed at just one organization, the Black Panther Party. Hoover had publicly called the Panthers the greatest threat to the internal security of the country, and you can see that obsession reflected right here in the FBI's actions. This chart really puts that disproportionate focus into perspective. In just a 4-year window, the FBI proposed more actions against Black nationalist groups than it did against white hate groups over a 7-year period. And it wasn't just about the numbers. The tactics used against Black organizations were consistently more violent and way more severe.
So that break-in back in Media, Pennsylvania, it set off a chain reaction that finally dragged this entire program out of the shadows and forced a national reckoning. So what happened next? Well, the FBI officially shut down COINTELPRO just a month after those stolen documents started getting published. The public was outraged, and that led the Senate to form something called the Church Committee. This was the first ever major investigation into America's intelligence agencies. Their final report was just scathing, and its findings led directly to new laws, like FISA, which were specifically designed to make sure these kinds of abuses could never happen again. Probably the most important reform to come out of all this was the creation of permanent committees in Congress to watch the spies. For the very first time, there was going to be a system of legislative oversight, a real check on the previously unchecked power of agencies like the FBI. But here's the thing. The story doesn't just end in the 1970s. A lot of critics argue that while the name COINTELPRO disappeared, the tactics didn't really go away. Fast forward to 2017. A leaked FBI report identified a new domestic terror threat they called Black identity extremists. Immediately, civil rights groups called it out, labeling it COINTELPRO 2.0, basically a new way to criminalize Black activism. And that brings us right back to this fundamental and really tough question. The story of COINTELPRO is a pretty stark warning about what can happen when secret intelligence agencies are allowed to operate without strict oversight. It forces us, even today, to constantly ask, where do we draw the line between protecting the country and protecting the constitutional right to dissent? What is security and what is suppression? That is the question the legacy of COINTELPRO demands we all keep asking.